Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a reporter from Taiwan. Now I'm going to report for toilet bowl. This is a problem statement. The light bulb can be picked up by a funnel blowing accurate. Explain the phenomenon, investigate the relevant parameters. So the reporter mainly focuses on what causes the phenomenon to happen and the investigation of the parameters. So this will be my presentation outline. First, I will show you my observation video, like how the light bulb to be picked up, and also I'm showing the experimental method and the observation video. And third part, I'll be explaining how I use the continuity equation and the Bernoulli principle that will be measuring the minimum flow rate to pick up the bulb. The equipment and the setup part is doing the equipment and the setup we use, and the experiment and the discussion will be discussing about the shape of the funnel, the weight and the radius of the bulb, and also the gap between the funnel and the bulb. And that will be my conclusion. So this will be an observation video. So here you can see we are using a styrofoam bulb as a light bulb, and you can see firstly it will be picked up by bigger flow rate. We will control the flow rate that we minimize the, and we'll make the flow rate become smaller. But smaller flow rate it will fall down because of the pressure difference is not enough to pick up the bulb. So firstly, we're talking about we're first talking about the continuity equations. So about the continuity equation, we can calculate the velocity of the air between the funnel and the bulb. So the flow velocity of the air will be 1 over the area times the flow rate. And the area here will be the area between the funnel and the bulb, which will vertical to the bulb. And the area of it will depend on the angle between in each direction. And so by this equation, we calculated the area between the funnel and the bulb. And we take it into the equation here, we can get our funnel equation about the velocity of the air between the funnel and the bulb. So and according to Bernoulli's equation, that's a 1 over 2 log V squared plus the pressure plus the log Gy equals to constant, which means that when the velocity of it will become bigger, the pressure of the pressure inside the funnel and bulb becomes smaller. So due to the pressure difference between the pressure inside the funnel and outside the funnel, the pressure difference is what mainly causes the bulb to be picked up. And also by this equation, we can get the P, which is the pressure inside the funnel and the bulb, by this equation. And in our previous slide, we are calculating the velocity of the air between the funnel and the bulb. We can apply this into this formula, then we can get the final equation of the pressure inside the funnel and the bulb. So we'll be showing about the force that's acting on the light bulb. So firstly will be the impact forces that will equal to rho A times B times squared, and we transfer it into the function with the formula with the flow rate. And that will be the forces that caused by the pressure inside the funnel. So here the reason why we interpreted on delta rho, because with an area between the 0 and delta rho, in this area, mainly of the forces will be caused by the impact forces instead of the pressure forces inside the funnel. And also the FP0 will be affected by the atmospheric pressure outside the funnel. And by these three forces that will be act on the light bulb. And from this equation, we can get that the mg will equal to Fp0 minus Fp minus Fn and minus friction. And the direction of the friction will be depends on the bulb that will be oscillating or rotating. And here will be and this part of the equation will be representing the atmospheric pressure, and here will be representing the pressure inside the funnel and also the impact force. So by this equation, we can see that so for the funnel to pick up, it will be mainly affected by the flow rate of the flow rate we input, and also the radius of the bulb, the distance between the funnel and the bulb. So here will be equipment that we use in our experiment. First, air compressor used to supply air to the funnel, and you are using a styrofoam bulb and also a funnel. We have a spherical shaped funnel and conical shaped funnel. And also we're using an air flow meter to determine the flow rate, and also a throttle to control the flow rate. And we are using now to add weight to the styrofoam bulb. And here will be an exact picture of the setup part, exact picture of our setup. So first about the setup, first we are using a compressor which will be connected to the pipe to throttle and air flow meter and the funnel. So the experiment method is will be firstly So first it will be make the flow rate big enough for a ball to be picked up. and we'll control throttle so that will make the floor become smaller. And we'll measure the minimum flow rate that the minimum flow rate to the funnel to pick out the ball. This is our experimental method. And here will be the experiment about the problem that we did in our experiment. We are trying with different shape of the funnel, with conical shape funnel and spherical shape funnel. We will control the gap between the funnel and the ball, and the size of the ball, and also control the size of the funnel. And we are trying the funnel with and without baffle. And I've mentioned that in all of the experiment that the Reynolds number will be lower than 2,000 at 2,000, and it will be, and the Mach number will be lower than 0.3. That it will be a laminar flow and also incompressible flow that we can apply the theory into our experiments. So first, about the experiment will be control the different shape of the funnel. So here we are using the conical shape funnel and the spherical shape funnel. We control the ball radius will be 2.5 centimeters. So here will be a video about using the two different shapes of the funnel. So here will be a conical shape and here will be a spherical shape funnel. So you can see in this video that the ball is obviously shaking and rotating at the same time. And compared to spherical shape funnel, it was only rotating without shaking. So here will be a result that we are using two shapes of the funnel. Here will be the weight of the ball, and here will be the minimum flow rate that the minimum flow rate to pick out the ball. So here you can see that comparing to the spherical shape funnel, conical shape funnel needs more flow rate to pick out the same weight of the ball. And also you can see when the weight of this will be increased, and the weight of the ball was increasing, that the flow rate needed to pick out the ball will be bigger. So you can see that when the weight of the here you can see when the weight of the ball is bigger, there will be more matches of our theory, and when the weight of this becomes smaller, it will be less matches of our theory. So this will be mainly due to the impact force that act on the ball, because when the weight of the ball becomes smaller, that the forces that affect the ball will become bigger. So this will be the effect of the impact force that you can see. And also I've mentioned that I want to mention that with the conical, you can see when the conical shape ball comes, exactly matches of theory line with the spherical shape be more likely to match the theory line. So this is because when the shape of the funnel is more closer to the ball, that will mean that the flow velocity will become more steadier inside the funnel. So with more steadier flow velocity, so it causes the our theory prediction will be more closer to our experimental results. And here will be changing the gap between the funnel and the ball. And here we are changing the gap in the funnel from 0.1 centimeter to 1 centimeter. And we're using the same funnel and same ball. And so here in our experiment, this is an experimental setup in this experiment. So in this experiment, we are using an electronic scale as a force meter, and we are fixing the distance between the funnel and the funnel and the ball by supporting, and the box here will be reducing the airflow that act on the electronic scale for that will influence the experimental result. So the experimental method here that we are putting the whole system onto the electronic scale, and we'll reset the scale, and we'll open the air compressor to measure the and which certain flow rate that it will be picked up with 1 grain of the weight. So this graph shows the relationship between the gap and also the flow rate that needed to pick up 1 grain of the weight. So here you can see that when the gap between the funnel and the ball become bigger, the flow rate needed to become bigger. So this will because when the gap between the funnel and ball become bigger, this will causes the area between the funnel and ball become bigger. So this will causes the flow velocity when we are including the same flow rate, the flow velocity becomes smaller, and the pressure difference becomes smaller. So that this will be more flow rate needed to pick up the same weight of the weight. And here we can see that the experimental result actually matches the theory pretty well. And here, experiment that we're changing the size of the ball, we're changing the size of the ball, and also we're changing the size of the funnel. And here we're using a spherical shape funnel, we will match all of the funnel radius will be 0.2 0.2 centimeter bigger than the radius of the ball. So this will be experimental result that representing the flow rate that needed in certain flow rate that the weight could be picked up. So as you can see, when the flow rate becomes bigger, that the weight could when the floor is become bigger, that the weight is could be picked up will get bigger. And also when the radius of the when the radius of the funnel and the ball become bigger, so it causes the weight it can pick up to become smaller. So this is the radius of the even when the radius of the ball and the funnel change at the same time, the area between the funnel and ball will also change. And with the bigger area of this, the flow velocity will become smaller. So causes the pressure difference becomes smaller. So it will be more. So the weight it could be picked up will become smaller. So in our previous experiment, we talking about that the impact forces will act on will be causing effected onto the ball. So here we're using adding a baffle inside the funnel. So where a baffle will be plastic pieces that the airflow cannot just hit the ball, but it can go through it from the side of it. So here you can see that, and in this experiment, we're comparing the result with the adding baffle and without baffle. We're using the same ball. So here we can see that the plus will be sensing the result of the no baffle, and the blue line will be representing the result with baffle. So you can see with the blue dots will be more matches to a theory, and also will be more patches. And also when the weight becomes bigger, the difference will become smaller. So this will because when the impact forces, when the weight is bigger, that impact forces will need that much impact onto the ball. So this will be a conclusion. First, the principle will be the mechanism of this phenomenon. Also, the shape of the ball is closer to the shape of the ball. This will cause the flooring media to become the same way to become smaller. The gap between the funnel is bigger because the flooring media to same way to become smaller. And the lift will be proportional to the square of the flow rate, and that will be representing the result here from the formula calculation. And also, the ball of the funnel with baffle will be more stable because the impact will only act on the ball. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation. Okay.
First of all, I really thank for your reports, and I have some few questions about it. So firstly, you use a continuity equation in your report, right? So do you know, so what actually guarantees you to use a continuity equation in your model?
So here will be, I will be making some small assumption that the airflow will actually go like this, that it will be, the airflow actually will be on the...
So that means that you actually assume how the flow will actually behave in this model.
Yes, and our experimental result, then you can see that this won't cause many effects on the experimental, on the theory prediction. It will not cause the discrepancy between the theory and the result.
So did you ever check how did you ever try to check how the real flow in the phenomenon will actually?
We haven't checked the flow field of the inside the funnel, but we can calculate it for our theory.
Okay, thank you. And nextly, when the airflow goes perpendicular on the ball surface, the stagnation will happen.
Sorry.
So there will be some area where the velocity of the airflow becomes zero when the velocity goes perpendicular to the ball surface.
And in that part, I believe in that part it will be mainly affected by the impact forces instead of the pressure.
So that is actually guaranteed in your Benjamin principle model, in your model for your phenomenon explanation.
Sorry.
So what I actually talk now is I'm asking whether the thing that I actually talk now is guaranteed in your model. Okay, we'll go through the next questions. And next thing, moving on to the experimental part. So you use a styrofoam ball.
Yes.
So what is the difference between the styrofoam ball and the ping pong ball that is given?
I believe that will be affected of the surface of it, because I think that the surface of the ping pong will be more smoother and the fringe of it will be much smaller.
Okay, thank you. And let's start the discussion. Ping pong ball can be picked up with a funnel by blowing air through it. We have to explain the phenomenon and investigate the relevant parameters. So moving on to the report overview, the key points of the report was firstly the continuity equation and the invariance principle for the levitation process of the ball, and then see the relevant parameters, which were firstly the weight of the ball and the radius of the ball, and etc. And this is for the theoretical approach. They use the continuity equation and the variance principle. However, I couldn't see whether they actually gave the justifications for the assumptions that is critically needed for the continuity equation and the Bernoulli's principle. And nextly, they made an integration for the question to get the final levitation force acting on the ball. And nextly, for the experimental approach, they use the air compressor to give the airflow, and they use a styrofoam ball, and they use a funnel and air system, and they use flow meter to measure the air velocity. And the parameters they actually used was firstly the shape of funnel, and it's the gap between the funnel and ball. Nextly, the radius of the ball that they use, and nextly the funnel with or without the baffle. And nextly, they actually showed the theory experiment and showed the empirical match, and also they went through the error analysis. And next thing, moving on to the strength and weaknesses of the reporter's report. So firstly, for the strong points, they had a thorough explanation of their formulas used. And next, they had a quantitative explanation of the pressure difference, and they also highly controlled the setup to the counter airflow. However, there were some weak points that the reporters had. So only when they actually in their experiment, they had a case when the funnel size and the ball size is very similar, so they didn't actually control the size of the funnel extremely. So we like to ask whether the behavior of the ball itself will change when the size of the funnel will change. And nextly, they made an inadequate usage of the continuity equation since they didn't know in what actual behavior will the flow actually behavior. So I want to deal this in the discussion part. And nextly, they made an unclear explanation of the deviation that happens in the data matching part. And nextly, they had no clear examination of actual flow of the air in the funnel, as I said before. So I'll move on some discussion points. So firstly, I'd like to discuss about the application of the Bernoulli's principle and the continuous equation. So I'd like to ask, does the airflow in the real phenomenon satisfy the preliminaries of the Bernoulli's principle and the continuous equation? And I'd like to discuss about the integration rate that was in their theoretical approach. And nextly, I want to listen to more explanation about the friction that they actually said about. And nextly, I'd like to discuss more about the exact flow tendency. So I want to ask whether the real flow satisfies their model and whether they can derive the actual cross-section area where the flow goes through. And nextly, for the experiment, we like whether they could actually produce a uniform static flow. And nextly, the axisymmetry guarantee of the experiment, since they were only looking at the axisymmetrical situations. And also, I would like to discuss about the situations when the funnel is bigger than their experiment. And nextly, more moving on to the experiment. So since the pressure inside the air decreases as we provide the airflow, I'd like to more elaborate about the constant flow. And I'd like to discuss more about the stagnation zone prevention that they mentioned when they mentioned about the baffle. And next, for the graph matching, I'd like to discuss about the tendency difference that's shown between the experimental graph and the theoretical graph. And I'd like to move on to the error analysis for that part. And I'd like to discuss about the R-square value inside of the graph. And also, I'd like to elaborate on the clarification of the word flow rate in the experimental graph matching. So I'd like to invite the reporter.
So here we'll be mainly talking about incompressible flow. So here about the when the Mach number is 0.3, that the flow rate is 430 as of the end, and in all the experiment it will be lower than 230 as of the end.
So that's for the Bernoulli's principle. So I think the main point in your report will be firstly the Bernoulli's principle, and nextly the continuous equation, right? So firstly, let's move on to the Bernoulli's principle. So there are mainly three preliminaries for the Bernoulli's principle, do you know?
Yes.
So that is for the incompressible flow,
yes.
And nextly it has to be non-viscous, and we also need the static flow, right?
Yes.
So what about the non-viscous flow? So can you show me any verifications for the non-viscous flow?
When you have the verification about our experiment result, I can see that theory actually this is the experiment, so I believe that will be.
However, just the fact that the theory matches the experiment cannot actually solve this problem. So you need some physical evidences that can actually persuade all the people.
Okay, but I believe that the viscosity of the air is minimal, so I don't think that will causes a fact on the this phenomenon. So I believe that the main absolute proof will be an incompressible flow.
So you think that the viscosity is not the important parameter for the exact flow and the exact levitation process of the ball?
I believe in the air that will be not the, it could be neglected.
However, I actually strongly disagree, and I like to suggest that if you actually try to see the real flow around the ball, maybe the viscosity of the air itself around the boundary layer of the ball maybe actually act as a very important parameter in this case. So I like to suggest that it will be much better if you actually look at the actual flow.
Yeah, definitely agree that this will may cause some effect. I believe in our experience that this will consider maybe effect, and I think there will be some difficulty on measuring the real flow field of the inside the model.
Yes, I appreciate that. And then I'd like to move on to the continuity equation. So in your model, you drew this diagram, right?
Yes.
And you actually assume that the flow moves like this. So you thought like some example of a pipe flow.
Yes.
Right? So let's think of a new situation. So let's say that the ball is much lower than the funnel itself.
Yes.
So do you think that the flow behavior itself will be similar?
So I believe that when the flow is when the flow is big enough, I don't think that will solve in this position.
So can you actually draw things? So what is your thought about the flow?
Yeah,
Flow is.
So I believe in most of the part it will be first acting like this direction and then go in this direction. And here will be a little, it will be a little amount of the flow will be caused by the quantum effect that will be following the curve of the ball. And I believe that most of the ball will go in this direction.
So let's clarify. So when you use the Bernoulli's equation, the reason why the ball levitates is a pressure gradient due to the difference of the flow velocity, right? So since you said that the airflow will actually act like this, so let's think of some situation. So in this situation, the flow will actually behave like this, and there will be some pressure gradients happening in this and this area.
Yeah, I believe in most part of the area there will be a gradient.
So you said you didn't actually know how the real flow will act in this case, but so how can you actually determine? How can you justify that the airflow will actually fill all the area here, so there will be no pressure gradient overall?
Oh, sorry.
So you said that when I made a question, you said that you couldn't make an attempt to see the real actual flow acting in the real phenomenon.
Yes.
Right.
However, that main part will be at like this direction. So
I was asking for the justification.
Okay.
Okay. And nextly, moving on to the experiment. So you use the air compressor.
Yes.
Right.
And it will be stable. I will explain more about that.
Okay. So to use the Bernoulli's principle and to match it with the experiment, we need to verify that whether your experiment setup also matches the condition for the Bernoulli's principle. So did the air compressor give a steady flow? So are there any data for?
We have that because we have measured it will be stable, and I don't think I will have the needed to show the experiment.
So you don't have any velocity profile from that is given from the air compressor, right?
Sorry.
So you don't have any velocity profile over time that's given by the air compressor. So.
Yes, and there will be a throttle that will be connected between the air compressor and the airflow meter. So
when we use the air compressor, we believe that there will be some pressure difference happening in the main body of the air compressor. So the flow velocity given by the air compressor might be different this time.
I have to mention that this part here will be a throttle, and the throttle is used to control the airflow. So this part will control that it will be stable. And we have the airflow meter on here between the throttle and the funnel, and the airflow meter will control that the flow is come from the air compressor will be stable.
Okay, thank you. So moving on more on the experiment. So the problem statement calls for the ping pong ball, for example.
Yes.
So I want you to elaborate more about the main difference between the styrofoam ball and the ping pong ball.
So okay, I believe that the main difference between the ping pong ball and the styrofoam ball will be due to the surface of the ball will be different, because I believe that compared to the styrofoam ball, ping pong ball will be more smooth.
So you mean the surface of the ball itself is a parameter for the ball's levitation?
Yes.
So I'd like to. It would have been very better if you actually take into the actual flow and the actual flow difference due to the surface difference of the ball inside your experiment.
Okay, thank you.
And let's slightly move again to your theory. So you mentioned about the friction.
Yes.
So can you elaborate more about the friction in your theory?
Okay, so in our video you can see that the styrofoam ball will actually be oscillating and rotating at the same time. So I believe that the friction, the direction of the friction.
So you mean the shear stress that is given by the air to the ball boundary?
Sorry?
So you mean the shear stress that the air gives to the ball?
I believe that the oscillation of this will be due to the vortex under the styrofoam ball, but I also mentioned that this is because the direction of the friction will be affected by the oscillation and also the rotation of the ball.
So I could actually see, so what oscillation are you actually talking here? So we could see oscillations at the top of the video and also the first of the video. So what actual oscillation are you talking about?
You mean the first video and the...
Yes, it's in your verification video, the observation video.
Oh, that's the same video.
So you mean the oscillation, so what, the oscillation that you're talking about now is the oscillation that lasted?
Of the ball.
Yes, so the oscillatory behavior of the ball.
Yes.
At the last part. After the levitation, the
Yes.
oscillatory behavior. So I just want the clarification for the oscillatory behavior of the ball, since that might be very intertwined with the actual flow that is going through the ball. So can you just briefly talk about the reason why the oscillation happens?
So the first of all, the airflow look like this, and after the connected ball, there will be vortex under the ball, and the vortex, the amount of the vortex and that appear of the vortex that will be actually random, and it will be affected by the the oscillating of the ball.
So nextly, we will move to the graph and the data matching. So can you define the flow rate in your graph, the data matching? So you use the word flow rate.
Yes.
So what flow rate did you actually measure?
The flow rate that go through the airflow, we have to use the same diameter of the bubble.
Okay, then nextly, can we show your graphs the matching of the mass flow rates and the other parameters? So we actually made an error analysis for those parts. Yes, so can you elaborate more again about the discrepancies happening in these?
Okay. So because of the weight of the ball becomes smaller, so in this experiment we're using a funnel without a baffle. That the impact forces of the airflow will actually act on the.
So you said you use baffles for calibrating the impact forces.
Yes.
So can you actually elaborate more about the process?
So here will be a funnel using a baffle. So here it will be a plastic ball. Here will be a plastic that the airflow won't actually act. The impact force of it won't actually just act on the also. But the airflow can go through it. So this will minimize the impact of the impact force that caused by the airflow.
Okay, so since you use this shape. This parabolic shape. However, won't the manipulation of the impact force will be different for different geometry of the particle?
I believe that the impact will be mainly affected by the cross area here, and we have to control the cross area saying that this.
However, all we want to see is the relevant. So summarizing the discussion with the reporter, first of all, we'd like to actually emphasize the importance of the justification of Bernoulli's principle and the continuity equation. So we actually asked for the reporter for the justification of those two usages of the equations. However, we couldn't listen to some satisfactory answers for the justification of those equations. And I'd like to suggest that it would much be better if they actually put the justification of those equations with the demonstration of real flow around the ball in the real phenomenon. And nextly, for the flow direction, the reporter actually showed us this behavior of the airflow around the ball. However, we believe that this behavior of the ball itself is not the pipe model that they actually used in the Bernoulli's principle. So we actually think that it would much have been better if they made a simple quantitative analysis for different airflows rather than the pipe model that they use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the questions.
Okay, so first of all, for the reviewer, how would you, sorry for the reporter, how would you expect that viscosity here could affect here?
I believe the viscosity of the air will be minimal, so I don't think that this will affect it.
Okay, and why didn't try first with the ping pong ball?
I just, for example, I believe that this will, I think that this only affected the surface of this, so I don't think that this will cause the difference about the radius or the weight of the ball, so I don't think that this.
Okay, I disagree because of the statement, but it's okay. To the opponent, well, both, but for the opponent, do you think that the Coanda effect is involved here?
I think the behavior of the airflow that's creeping over the surface itself is maybe related to the quantum effect itself, and I think the airflow creeping over the ball's boundary is very important parameter in this phenomenon.
And you?
I agree that the Coanda effect will make a role in this phenomenon, but I think that majority of the airflow will go in this direction. So I don't think that the Coanda effect will cause many impact in this phenomenon.
Okay. So, do you have any approximate value of the lift force that you mentioned at the beginning?
What force?
The lift force.
The lift force will be, we actually kind of has the present number here, but the present number is showing as a graph. So the theory will be, we can calculate the estimated force by the ball rate.
And that force changes in relation of what parameter of the variables that you change in your experiment?
It will be mainly affected by the flow rate and also the gap between the funnel and the ball.
And don't you think if the mass of the ball or the...
I believe that the mass of the ball won't change the lift of force, but the force that will go downward.
Okay, and you use the styrofoam ball, right?
Yes.
So don't you think the static between the funnel and the ball will affect your phenomenon using those kinds of materials?
I think it will be because it's on smooth. The surface of the sample will be on smooth, but I don't think that will be significant enough to change the gap between the funnel and the ball.
Okay, and what do you think about this question?
About the styrofoam ball and
Yes.
the ping pong ball. I think those two are very different because we think that the airflow creeping over the ball surface is a very critical thing in this phenomenon. So when the ball surface has some dimples, those flow might creep more. So it actually might cause a pressure gradient force acting on the ball. So it actually be a very important parameter.
Okay, thank you very much.
My name is Tania Martinez. We are from Mexico and we're going to review problem 4 funnel ball. The report, strength. In the qualitative analysis, they mentioned the Bernoulli's principle, the equation of continuity, but they didn't. They didn't made a clear effect on the phenomenon. And the pressure difference, which I agree with, and the forces, the impact force, and the inside funnel pressures, but they couldn't give any value of those. The experiment, the variables were in the ball, the mass and the size, then in the funnel, the shape, the size, the material, the gap. So I think that they were all covered. Then in the quantitative analysis, they calculated the area between the funnel and the ball, which is an important parameter, and the calculation of the Reynolds number. In the conclusion, they all explained the phenomenon. And then in the qualitative analysis, I think that the most important missing point was the Coanda effect, because they later mentioned it in the discussion, but I think that it is really good to explanation to this phenomenon. And in the experiment, they did not try the ping pong ball, and in the quantitative analysis, any values were presented. For the opponent, the strength, they mentions the moment where the air velocity is 0, which is important, and the direction of the airflow when it first enters to the funnel, and ask about the continuity equation, which we agreed that it wasn't well explained, and emphasize the importance of the 3 conditions of an even flow to use the Bernoulli's principle, which is the very most important things in this phenomenon. And the experiment asked about the different materials, And they didn't mention any about the Coulomb effect until I asked for it. And they didn't ask for the values missing in the report. Then the 5 points, first they talk about the Bernoulli's principle. The opponents asked for the conditions, and the presenter says that the viscosity has no relevance in this phenomenon. So in this point, I have to agree with the opponent, because if your flow doesn't count with this condition, the viscous, rotational, inviscid, and incompressible, you can't say that your phenomenon is working with Bernoulli's principle if you don't have those 3. And then they talk about the experiment, which I think that it was the most different points of view. And here I have to agree also with the opponent, because I think that a styrofoam ball will create more static than using a ping pong ball. And besides that, if the problem statement says ping pong ball, we must begin with that. And about the friction, the opponent asked for it because it wasn't mentioned by the reporter. So it talks that it affects on the oscillations, but it's not clear. And in which one or in which way does this affect it? And our own contribution to, besides what you have said, the most important things would be the Coulomb effect and the statics. And because the Coulomb effect is a temperature density attached to a compact surface, and because of the difference in pressure, it causes the ball to rise and stay there, but as well as the Bernoulli's principle. Thank you.
So this will be a concluding remark for the reporter. So first we'll be talking about that Bernoulli's principle that will cause the pressure difference will be mainly affected this phenomenon, so what causes the ball to pick up. And we're using the vertical formula and also the backflow to reduce the impact of the water jets, that the flow rate will be, flow velocity will be more steadier, and also impact will really act on the light. And we have measured the minimum flow rate needed to pick up the ball in certain weights, and also we have changed to a different shape, different gap, and different weight. And this will also affect the more stable flow, and it will cause it that it will be, when it's more closer to a ball, it will make it easier to pick up, and the bigger flow needed to pick up the same weight. And when the light is bigger, it will be proportionate to the square of the flow rate. Next slide, please. And the flow of the compressor will be stable, and we have verified it from the experiment. It will be controlled to a throttle at the throttle and the airflow meter, and we're using an airflow meter to determine that the flow rate from the air compressor will be stable. And the friction will stabilize the oscillation of the vortex, and the vortex will cause the oscillation ball. And the direction of friction will affect the oscillation of the ball will affect the directions of the friction that act on the ball. And about the limits of the Bernoulli's principle, that will be the incompressible flow. We have been measured about the Mach number, and I believe that the viscosity of the air will be negligible. And can turn to a statement. So you can see that the one statement is that there will be a light ball, for example, a ping pong ball. So I believe that using a styrofoam ball could be applied into this problem state. Can be used in this phenomenon? And use we believe the Coulomb effect will appear in this phenomenon, but I think that the amount of the airflow caused by be affected by the Coulomb effect will be negligible. And the resulting model matches the data pretty well, so we believe that and also we will have with the arrow explain quantitatively about the difference between the theory and the experiment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of the jury?
For the opponent, do you agree that the oscillations of the ball in the funnel are caused by turbulence?
I think that the oscillation is so when the ball levitates, and let's imagine there's a time that the ball makes some short time being tangential to the funnel's wall. So since the flow is flowing perpendicular to the ball surface, there happens a stagnation zone where the velocity of the flow gets zero. So it makes the pressure inside this zone very bigger, which actually makes the ball to move.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
To the reporter, do you think there is some critical height at which there will be a lifting taking place?
Sorry?
Do you think there is any critical height where at which a ping pong ball will get up?
Inside the funnel.
Yeah.
I believe that so we can consider this as a tube in like both sides of it. So the airflow goes in this direction. So I believe that the flow rate will like go in this direction. So I don't think that if there will be a pressure that will be zero, that will be after the flow. So I don't think that's what will cause it effect in this phenomenon.
Okay, I would like a follow-up question regarding this. What was the largest gap between the funnel or the nozzle and the ball?
You mean the large will be 1 centimeter.
Okay. And have you investigated more carefully the picking up? Like, what is the critical distance? The critical gap
It could be picked up.
for fixed flow rate?
For fixed flow rate that I think that will be like for example if the ball radius will be 2.5 centimeter, I believe that will be about 5 centimeter.
Okay. But did you investigate it or not?
We didn't investigate of the distance but we have we have controlled the different gap. We have then measured the distance from the pickup motion of the distance of the pickup motion.
I don't mean pickup motion, but just like the static comparison or just some binary result, like what is the when we are fixing the flow rate, what is the critical gap or critical distance between the nozzle and the ball in which you are still able to pick up the ball for the specific funnel.
We did put it in our report. So
Could you please show us some? If you have such graph, could you please show us?
So this will be about we're changing the gap between each funnel and the. So we have changed the gap. We have changed the experiment with changing the gap between the funnel and the ball, and we have from 0.2 centimeter to 1 centimeter. So,
Okay,
I'm not sure what you are talking about.
just you have the data just to the 1 centimeter.
0.2 centimeter to 1 centimeter.
And to the reviewer, so you mentioned Wanda effect. Could you maybe using this graph in the slide of the reporter show what forces would act on the ball due to the Wanda effect?
Yes, of course. It will be the thing that when the airflow meets the ball, there will be a difference in pressure. So around the ball, so the pressure that is below the ball will be higher. So there will be an upward force, but it is also about the pronounced principle. It is not Ganda. Ganda is just the tendency of the air to surround the ball.
And how does this tendency change the forces that act on the ball?
Because it changes the pressure.
Okay.
Any questions?
I just wanted to hear
Yes.
if the others can add to it.
Okay, so here's a model here concept like that this ball will cause this centrifugal force that causes the air to goes with the current of the ball. So there will be that the ball will give the air the centrifugal force that act on the center of the ball. Then also there will be a reaction force of the centrifugal force that will be caused by this directions.
So I think that the quantum effect will not have a significance in this problem since the air velocity is quite very fast. So my opinion is that during the real flow around the ball, so the flow separation will happen at a certain point of the ball, which cannot be explained in the quantum effect. So since when the ball actually moves over, when the airflow moves over the ball's boundary surface, there will be some pressure gradient forcing happening at the boundary layer of the ball. So I think that the pressure gradient that is happening at the ball's boundary layer due to the flow separation will be very important in this problem.
Okay, thank you very much.